We're going to begin this morning at the Vatican, where day 2 of the conclave to elect the next pope is underway. This morning we saw black smoke. That means after 3 votes, the cardinals have not yet chosen a new pope to lead the Catholic Church.
The 133 cardinal electors have since taken a break for lunch. They're going to resume voting later this afternoon, with 2 more votes expected today. The last 2 popes were chosen on the second day of the conclave, so there's a lot of anticipation. Today could be that day. We're joined now by NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga and NBC News contributor, Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter, Christopher White. Good to have both of you with us. So, Claudio, let's start with you. The secrecy of the conclave, that's what makes it so exciting. No TV, no social media, no internet. The only way the cardinals communicate with us is via smoke, which is released from the Sistine Chapel's chimney. How are folks in St. Peter's Square reacting to the smoke show so far?
Hey, Joe. Well, since yesterday, since the first round of voting, thousands of people have gathered in St. Peter's Square waiting for the smoke to come out of the chimney. The Vatican said that yesterday 45,000 people filled the square and the surrounding areas. They had to wait a long time. It was 3 hours between the closing of the doors of the Sistine Chapel and the first smoke, longer than usual, but they all waited patiently. And then in the end, there was a big round of applause, because even though the smoke was black, so no pope was elected, they still feel part of this centuries-old tradition. They're now back into the square this morning again, black smoke, and we expect them to come back later in the afternoon, because as you mentioned, in the last 2 conclaves, the popes were elected on the second day of the conclave. So if that trend continues, we may have a pope by the end of today, Joe.
Christopher, we'd love for you to weigh in on that. Just the fact, each round so far has ended in this black smoke. Are those the results that you would have expected this early on in the conclave?
I think so. What it takes when they get inside that room is to cast an initial ballot to sort of see what the spread is, and then they go back in the second day, and that's when the numbers start getting serious. They start sort of lining up, and you see blocks emerge, and it's really on that second and third ballot where we're able to get a sense of, they're able to get a sense of where these votes might be headed, and then they'll go and have lunch, and perhaps some deals will be made, and we'll see greater numbers start to coalesce behind 1 or 2 candidates.
Lester Holt was talking yesterday about how it felt like the last conclave, the smoke was kind of gray. They were like, wait, is that black or is that white? This is very black smoke. It is very clear they have not picked a pope, so I like that. Claudio, remind us now what this process will look like moving forward, what the schedule looks like for the rest of the conclave.
Well, every day the cardinals meet in the morning for 2 rounds of voting, and in the afternoon for 2 rounds of voting. So this afternoon they'll meet for another 2 rounds of voting. Now, if they elect a pope on the first vote of the afternoon, for instance, then we'll see white smoke earlier in the afternoon. If not, they will wait until the second round of smoking for that smoke to come out from the chimney. So we may not see it before around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern time. And then, so forth every day until they find a pope. But the thing is that after 3 days, if after 3 full days of conclave, they haven't reached an agreement and no cardinal elector has reached the 2/3 majority, they will take a day of pause, prayer, and reflection. In this particular case, it's going to be Sunday. But we'll see. Obviously, all eyes are on that chimney, so we'll see whether we have a pope before then.
Christopher, you mentioned that they're now on that lunch break, and that could be where deals are made, were the words you used. I think anyone who has seen the movie Conclave, I recently am a viewer of the movie, that's where a lot went down, was those meal times when there's really communication going on between all the cardinals. Just tell us what conversations might be taking place, what those time periods look like.
Well, there's no bribery. That's certainly expressly forbidden. But one of the things that these meal times provide is a chance for cardinals to get to know each other a bit better. And so a cardinal from Latin America can say, hey, could you bring over some cardinals from Africa or some cardinals from North America? And they provide them a chance to get to know each other, audition one another, and say, could we see this particular person being pope? Or what are the particular issues that are motivating you in this room? And that's how they began to kind of converge into groups, and that's why we see the numbers sort of trend in a certain direction as the days go on, because they have more time to do this sort of talking. And because of the vote counts being known among them, they know exactly the direction that they want or hope to be heading in.
Claudio, can you tell us more about just how they do make sure this remains such a super secret process? What are some of the steps they took to shield these cardinal electors from messages from the outside world?
Hey, Joe. Well, once those doors closed in the Sistine Chapel, they're completely cut off from the outside world. There's no access to mobile devices and electronic devices, newspapers, radio, television. Also, the Vatican has taken down the signal of mobile signal inside Vatican State. They told us a couple of days ago, something that didn't go down well with the people living and actually working inside Vatican State. They said they're losing business like this. But anyway, this is going to happen until they elect a new Pope. Also, when they return to the Casa Santa Marta and another building where they are staying, the windows have been blackened because some of the windows go on a main street outside of Vatican City and so forth. So they are completely cut out of the outside world, Joe.
Christopher, if I could put you on the spot and you wouldn't mind, we just like hearing a little rundown of who may be some top contenders here. Walk us through what we're thinking at this point.
Sure. I think it's fair to say that the person with the most name recognition going into this conclave was Cardinal Pietro Parolin. He was Pope Francis's Secretary of State, so a real diplomat. He knows the global situation very well. And because he's so well known in a conclave where there are so many unknown figures, most people think if this is a short conclave, he's probably likely to emerge first. Filipino Cardinal Luis Tagle is someone who's been often talked about. He's sometimes called an Asian Pope Francis because of his concern for the poor and the simple way in which he lives. But I think the general consensus is the longer that this goes on, the greater the likelihood of a surprise candidate emerging or some sort of consensus candidate if neither of those sort of big names get enough votes in the first rounds.
And Christopher, I know that we've had short conclaves recently. Is there a sense that this could be a little different because it's such a large group, because so many of the people didn't know each other coming into these past few weeks? You mentioned sort of the little auditions that might be going on during lunch.
It's really tough to say. I think on one hand, the cardinals are motivated to show unity. They don't want a long conclave because among many of them, they fear that it would project an image of a church divided, that it can't get its act together. On the other hand, I think, some of them in the final days leading into this conclave really said, we've got to take our time. This is, for many of us, the most important vote we'll cast in our lifetime. And so we should perhaps, tap the brakes a little bit to do the necessary work. So I think a 2-3 day conclave is likely. But, I'm not putting any money on anything.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.